Welcome back to Forbes Games. I'm Erik Kain. Today I wanted to talk about Uncharted, the movie starring Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg. This was actually a surprisingly good film. As a big fan of the video games, I felt like it captured the spirit of those games really well, even if the casting choices sort of felt a little off at times. Mark Wahlberg really doesn't look that much like Sully, even when he dons the mustache. However, as a young Nathan Drake, I think Tom Holland worked really well, and the two of them played really well off of one another. Actually, I find most of the cast to really fit their roles well, and the actual set pieces, action, all of that stuff really did capture the spirit, the vibe, the adventurousness of this sort of heist treasure hunting video game series. It seems like audiences also really enjoyed this movie. On Rotten Tomatoes, around 90% of audience members, viewers, whatever, said that they enjoyed the movie, whereas only 40% of critics liked it. So there's a very wide gap between critics and audience members. But I guess I'm in the minority of critics who really enjoyed this film and think that you should go see it on the biggest screen you can find. It is absolutely a big screen movie theater type movie, and it's doing really well in the box office right now. I also just want to talk about a couple things that the movie does better than the video games. I know this sounds a little heretical, right? I don't mean to engage in heresy. Naughty Dog is a fine developer, and they've done a good job with the series. But there are two things that have always sort of bugged me about the Uncharted games. Number one, there's too much climbing. You spend so much time climbing in Uncharted. It can be fun for a little while, but man, it gets old and a little tedious. But what's even more tedious is all the shooting. I'm not against shooting in video games. I am a big fan of violent video games. The more violent, the better sometimes. I like to play Call of Duty. I really like first-person shooters a lot. I'm not as fond of third-person shooters, unless they're like tactical shooters. But the problem with Uncharted games is really that there's so much shooting. You are in gunfight after gunfight after gunfight. Nathan Drake ends up killing hundreds of people in a single adventure. And this, to me, is sort of narrative dissonance. Drake is a thief. He is a, I'm going to call him, he is a bit of a rogue, right? He's a treasure hunter. He's a ne'er-do-well, but he never really strikes you as a killer until you play the next level and gun down dozens and dozens of bad guys. The shooting in Uncharted isn't very good either. It's not really justified. It's not really fun. It just pads what the fun stuff in the game actually consists of, which is treasure hunting, puzzle solving, platforming, minus the enormous amount of climbing, and the story. Really, that's the strength of Uncharted, is the story. Great characters, fun twists, and a rollicking good adventure. So what the movie does is it cuts out most of that shooting. I think Holland's version of Drake only draws a gun once, and replaces it with chases, with fist fights, with lots of action. But it's not all just like duck behind cover and shoot at 20 different guys. And I think that the Uncharted games could actually learn something from this. Cut back on the shooting in future releases and give us more cinematic fights. Give us more action adventure stuff. Give us more of what made the Indiana Jones movies work so well, which isn't to say that you don't have any shooting at all. One of the best gunfights in any movie is when the guy comes at Indiana with the swords and he just shoots him. That's hilarious, right? But Indiana, just like the film version of Nathan Drake, doesn't spend all his time shooting. There's also, climbing on tanks and a lot of other ways that the action unfolds. And I'd like to see that, more in the game version as well. Because Nathan Drake really isn't supposed to be the kind of character who just casually kills dozens and dozens and dozens of people. I'd like to see a little bit, and this is not because I am anti-violence in games. I think violence is fine in games. I am just saying I think it could be more interesting and more narratively fitting to replace all that shooting with other kinds of action and adventure. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.